Hey, everybody. I'm here this week on the Cosmic Leadership Podcast, and this week we get to welcome Anjie Cho. I have known Anjie for years, actually. I've been so lucky and blessed to have met her several years ago back in New York. Anjie Cho is an architect and Feng Shui educator. She's guided thousands of people to harmonize their living spaces through the ancient practice of Feng Shui. Anjie is the Feng Shui expert at The Spruce and has been featured in dozens of publications, including the New York Times, MindBodyGreen, and BuzzFeed. Anjie is co-founder of the Mindful Design Feng Shui School, co-host of the Holistic Spaces podcast, and owner of Anjie Cho Architect, PLLC. Welcome, welcome, Anjie.
Hi, Adalina. It's so nice to see you.
It's so good to see you too. I love to just dive right into things. So let's first start with what is Feng Shui? I'm imagining most of our listeners are very aware of Feng Shui and the importance of it. But let's hear in your words what it's all about.
Yeah, I love this question because I think that people have a perception of feng shui, but I think with most things, when you go deeper, you understand that there's much more to it. So I would say, like, the typical or the generic definition of feng shui would be to look at your environment and shift it in such a way that it's a practice of shifting your environment in such a way that you can improve the flow of energy so you can have more benefit in your life. And my definition of feng shui is similar,
Mm-hmm.
but a little bit more nuanced because I'm a meditation practitioner. I look at feng shui as mindfulness of space, and it's about paying attention to the details of your environment and recognizing that you are interconnected and interdependent with the spaces around you, as well as the objects and people and energies around you, that you can affect your environment, and alternatively, your environment affects you, so that you can start to see that you are a part of all of this, and it starts to cultivate compassion and also empowers you to create spaces that support you rather than create obstacles for you.
Ooh, I love that. So, all of our listeners are aware that I am the ultimate hack your life with spiritual tools person. And so we've been learning all about astrology and astrocartography and all of these different things. And as a group, we've been learning more about how we can also use these spiritual tools to have more prosperity in our lives. So if you could just share with us, like, maybe your top 5 tips for how to bring more prosperity into our lives through environment.
Okay. So, the number one thing that you can do is start looking at your front door of your space. And
Okay.
this is whether you live in an apartment, in a house, in a roommate situation. It's just the front door of the apartment or the house.
Okay.
And in feng shui, the front door, the formal front door, represents what we call the mouth of qi. And qi is life force energy, and it's also like your face to the world. That's what people see on the outside, and it's also the portal between the energy, the chi from the outside world, and that's how it connects to you. So all of your opportunities for prosperity or for shifts or transitions or any kind of positive chi needs to come in through your front door. So
Ooh.
there's very, like, super basic things you could do to look at your front door. One is make sure that you actually use your front door. So if you live in a house, a lot of people use the back
Just the back
door
door. Yeah.
or the garage door.
Yeah.
And when you don't use your front door, there's a missed opportunity. It's like you're not allowing that mouth of chi, that portal, to open.
Okay.
And so using that front door every day is really helpful. Like, maybe
Okay.
just make it a practice to, like, whenever you go out to get the mail,
Yeah. Go out through
always
the
go
front
through the
door.
front door. Yes.
Okay.
Or when you walk your dog, always go out through the front door. So bring it into your routine. And then, there's also other things, but something that I think is really important is to also pay attention to keeping your front door tidy, which
Mm-hmm.
is more than just like decluttering the area. Because a lot of people end up putting like stuff like that
Right.
they want on the way out. Like
I
the
do. Yes.
Yes, all the Goodwill stuff or like garbage or boxes, shipping boxes go near the front door because they're on their
Yeah.
way out, which is
Oh, so
okay.
even inside the front door needs to be free and clear.
Well, yes, but it's
Okay.
okay if you put things there temporarily because it's moving, right?
Okay.
But if you leave something there for like 2 weeks, then it's accumulating and creating an obstacle.
Oh, okay.
So you want to keep it free and clear, but also something that's really easy is to also make sure that like there's nothing blocking the front door from opening all the way. Like
Yeah.
if your door can't open all the way, if you have a lot of things hanging on your door,
Back door. Yeah.
yeah, basically it's like only a percentage of the chi can come in because you're
I
not
see.
allowing it all to come in. So
That's really
um,
beautiful symbolism.
yes.
I was just realizing, so my front door does have hooks on the back of it, but there aren't too many jackets because I live in LA, and so we don't use too many jackets. And it does open all the way, but we keep our garbage can and our recycling right next to the front door. It's a really small space. There's nowhere else to put it.
Mhm.
What do you think?
Well, do you keep it tidy?
Yeah, I mean, I have multiple allergies and stuff, so we keep it really tidy.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's a question that comes up a lot. People are like, well, where do I put my trash can?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to put it somewhere, right?
Right.
So the problem isn't necessarily where you put the trash can, is it that like the trash can is becoming a place of stagnant energy?
Right.
And there are like some nuances. For instance, like if you like for instance, if a client like wants to work on their prosperity and
Yes.
you look at their prosperity area, their
Yes.
wealth area, and maybe they have the trash can in there,
Yeah, that's not
then
great.
maybe it's like if that's something they're specifically working on, then
Yeah.
maybe they can find another place for it. That's another area of their life that's not um that doesn't need so much support, that's doing okay. Then maybe that would stand out as something that you would move.
So, I mean, that's a beautiful tip. I don't want to cut you off. So, what are the other few tips about prosperity that we can talk about before we talk about the map of the
Okay.
space?
Um So you can also make sure that your stove is clean and in working condition. So your stove represents your wealth and
Ooh.
it represents your ability to nourish yourself, right? And if you can nourish yourself properly, you're healthy, therefore you can be prosperous. So it represents your resources. And
Okay.
so you want to make sure all your stove is very clean. Like you
Hmm.
don't have like a dirty stove that you haven't
Yeah.
cleaned in quite some time where it's accumulated
Yeah.
debris and grime. So clean that. And then also the burners represent fire energy and wealth as well. So we say more burners, more wealth.
Okay.
So if you have, so what you could do is arrange some kind of mirror so that it reflects your burners, so it doubles your burners.
Ooh. All right. I love that tip because that's so actionable. If we just tape a burner to like that fan area or something above the stove,
Yeah, tape
that would
or
help.
tape of mirror. But you want
I'm
to make
sorry, I didn't
sure,
mean for thank
yeah,
you. Tape a mirror.
but you want to make sure it's securely fastened because
Okay.
if something is not put up properly, it's going to fall and feel precarious and feel dangerous, and you don't
Okay.
want it to crack. So you always want to be very mindful in how you place things like that, like a mirror near a stove. And
Okay.
I have one other nuance about the stove. So I always ask people, like, do you have a favorite burner on your stove?
Yeah, I do.
Okay,
It's my
which one?
front left one because it's the biggest one.
Okay, the
It makes
front left
tea
one.
water in 5 seconds. It's Great.
Okay, so the front left one, and like right now I'm going to the front right one a lot in
Okay.
my house. And so so I challenge people because your stove represents wealth, that instead of mindlessly every morning going to your favorite burner for tea,
Hmm.
taking a mindful moment to stand in front of your stove. It only takes like a fraction of a second. And
Okay.
instead of just mindlessly going to the same burner every time, stop and either purposely choose that one or choose a different one.
Yeah.
So you can start to create new patterns, new neural pathways to open yourself to opportunities, because maybe there's some prosperous opportunities in your life that you've completely overlooked because you're just
Hmm.
going on
On autopilot.
autopilot. So just that little practice every morning when you go to like heat up your tea or your water for coffee, you are creating this opening for receiving something new in your life.
Oh, I love that. That's a really great one too, because as you know, my background is in neuroscience, and that creating of new neural pathways is the majority of what I do in my practice. But we also forget about the simple, really tiny ways that we can create new neural pathways just by getting out of our routine. Nothing creates a neural pathway more quickly than doing something wildly different than you've ever done before. I'm not saying it's wild to use a different burner, but for me, honestly, at this point, it would be wild. Like I've been using that front left burner for my tea every morning for the last 9 months or something. So,
Exactly. And it's so simple. And I
yeah,
love the feng shui metaphor of it. Yeah, definitely. And that's like the beauty of feng shui too, because there's so many things that we become very accustomed to in our homes that we can't see because we're so used to things being a particular way.
right.
Yeah, which leads me to a third tip,
Okay.
which is to see if there's any obstacles in your daily path.
Mm, that's a good one.
So like this is another example of not like changing the neural pathway or changing the pattern because we become so accustomed to things a particular way. So for
Right.
instance, well, you used to live in New York, and
Yes.
so you know what a railroad apartment is, right?
Yes. I never lived in one, but I know what they are.
Yeah, I never lived in one either. But so for the listeners that don't know what a railroad apartment is that it's very long, like a railroad car, and you like kind of go room to room to room. And oftentimes the bathroom and the kitchen could be in the center. And usually like it's thinner in the center, like a barbell, and
Mm-hmm.
bigger rooms on the ends. So anyways, the student, this was at the beginning of the pandemic, and he was telling me, I was doing a consultation on his home for our certification program. And he had this bike there in the
Yeah.
hallway in the middle where it's very narrow.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, what is this bike for? He's like, oh, so my plan was to like bike everywhere during the pandemic because he lived in
Yeah.
the East Village, but he never ended up biking anywhere.
Oh no.
Right. So but instead, every day, several times a day, he would have to walk by this bike, but also make a big like accommodation for it, right? Because it's
Yeah.
right in the middle of your path, and you have to like purposely walk around it and then
Okay.
do that several times a day to get to move around your home.
Yeah.
And you don't notice it when you do it, but in fact you're training your body to wake up to blocks in
Yes.
your life. So sometimes we place things in our daily path that make it really challenging for us. So then we're experiencing several ways of seeing obstacles where there's no flow, that we're stopped. So it could even be like waking up and like having a pile of stuff next to you that you have to walk around
Mm-hmm.
to get to to walk out your room.
Yes.
And so by doing that, you also are really using up a lot of energy because your subconscious mind has to intentionally kind of ignore that, right? So
Yes.
you're so used to it. And there's always like, I feel like a lot of people have like a certain level of feeling guilt about that too. So then you
Yes.
spend so much energy. Like another example was someone told me like, oh my gosh, like I have like that like Peloton in the corner that I never
Yeah.
use. So even though you're not consciously thinking, I bought this Peloton that I never use, your mind is using energy to ignore that. And
Right.
so you're depleting your own energy by having these obstacles. And then also your body is moving to accommodate obstacles all the time. So when you can walk through your home, especially in your bedroom, without obstacles, without having to squeeze through
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
that reflects upon your whole life. Or else you're training your mind to squeeze through or walk sideways for people or
Hmm.
things. And so you want to be able to see clearly and to walk clearly.
Agreed. And I think this is particularly hard for those of us urbanites because we just have less space, right? So actually my apartment in New York was much bigger than where I'm living right now. Everyone told me I
Wow.
was going to get so much more space in LA, but I was dead set. So my first apartment here was in Pasadena because I wanted to be close to my love, and she lives further out. And then this apartment, I just said, we have to be close to the water. That's honestly all I care about. It's the entire reason I'm here in LA. Well, my first reason is her, but also it's the entire reason I'm here in LA. I need to be close to the water. And so I found this place and it's beautiful, but it's way too small for the two of us. So we're not living together yet based on the space.
Mm.
And it works well for me. But there are places, now that you say that, there are obstacles. Like I can't find another place in the bedroom to put the drying rack for the clothes. And I'm pretty much always drying clothes. So I'm trying to think of like, how could I do this? In New York, we have those well, I'm sure this is not just New York, but we have such structurally sound older buildings that we can put those hooks up on the ceiling and then you
Mm-hmm.
can kind of raise your bike up on those hooks and put it up there, or you can do something with the clothes across the ceiling so they're not always in your way. But it's
Mm.
not really a possibility in this apartment. So I know that Feng Shui comes with all kinds of little tricks. Like if you have to put your desk behind the door, you can put some crystals near the door to kind of balance the energy. What would you recommend for something like that, where there's an urbanite who can't get stuff up off the floor really, but there is a blocking
Yeah.
thing?
Well, it depends on the specific situation, and it would be different based on whatever the particulars are. But say if we're talking about your particular situation with the drying rack. So, one is that everyone has to do the best with what they have,
Right.
the best you can with what you have. So, if you don't have the space, like sometimes people are like, wait, like, can we fit like a table and a laundry? And I'm like, no, there's not
No.
enough space.
Yeah.
So, we're in the earth realm. So there's some
Yeah.
physical limitations but you do the best you can with what you have. So,
Right.
and that changes for everybody. And then with that, like with the your example of the drying rack, even though you're always using it or using it quite often, there can be a whole ritual involved in putting that away, bringing it out, just like we do with making our bed every morning.
True. Yeah.
Yes. So, like for instance, I study tea ceremony, and there is almost more time spent preparing and cleaning than the actual tea ceremony. So there, and
Okay.
I always try, when I first started, I tried to multitask. I'm like, I'm going to carry the teacup and the tea. And they're like,
Yeah.
no, 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 no,
No.
no, one at a time. I mean, like because they're like, everything is precious. Like pretend this teacup is $10,000.
Yeah.
You don't want to accidentally drop it. So
Yeah.
even considering your precious drying rack, which you use all the time, and it's doing so much for you,
It is. Yeah.
to be really kind to it and give it a home that it goes to in the maybe the 10% of the time it's not being used, and instead of just leaving it out, making it like
Mhm.
an obstacle, how can you make a whole ritual around it and make it a something beautiful and mindful rather than um,
Okay.
yeah, than looking at it as an obstacle or a difficulty, but looking at your home as an opportunity rather than feeling a lack.
Right. Oh my gosh, that's such genius, Angie. Say it again.
Say what?
Looking at your home as an opportunity,
Right, then to seeing it as a
seeing it as
place
a
of
lack.
lack. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
genius.
well, actually, I just met with my meditation instructor on Monday, and I was telling her because I've been feeling really speedy lately.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's just because like Zoom and it's like, this is the world now. And she
Yeah.
said, that's all true. But she's like, you can look at this as an opportunity to feed your neuroses, or you can use this time of transition in the world as an opportunity to put something in there to create change.
Right.
So there's huge opportunity there. Or I could just say, oh, like the world is getting too fast, it's making me more like speedy, like then you're just using it to exactly like reinforce your neuroses. So how do we not use our homes to reinforce our neuroses? Because I mean, obviously there's people like in poor poor places that have much less than we do, so it's all
Right.
relative.
It is all relative. And it's such a blessing that we even get to sit and think about how we want to feng shui our house. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I've known Angie for a long time, so she already knows all of this. But I used to work for the UN, and I worked in places of extreme poverty. And just even having a roof over your head and maybe even a mattress to sleep on was like and even for people in the States, I shouldn't be so cavalier about it. But it
Yeah,
is a
especially
huge
now.
luxury. It's a
Mm-hmm.
luxury that we even have that.
Yes, absolutely.
So we can look at this, how do we deal with our house problem, as an opportunity, not a lack thing, but like how can we bring more prosperity into our lives through feng shuiing our home? I love it.
Yeah, because a lot of people look at feng shui as fear-based, like,
Mhm.
oh no, what do I do if this is like that? And I challenge my students to think about things like, well, maybe you've been attracted to a home like this because your psyche knows that you're now able to work with this issue, this neuroses that's coming up for you. And maybe it exacerbates the situation because you're at a place in your life that you can handle it. Just like, when people start to remember their
Yes.
traumas,
Yes.
it's because your psyche now knows that it opens it up because it knows that some part of you knows that you can now begin to unpack that.
Yes.
There's a lot of
Absolutely.
intrinsic wisdom there, right?
Absolutely. It happens all the time in my practice. People who have just recovered memories of traumatic things that have happened when they were children or even sometimes in their 20s. And they get to be my age and they suddenly realize, oh, this was the root of all of that crazy stuff that had been happening to me. It's time to really heal this. But I've noticed that that happens when we feel the most supported, when we
Mm-hmm.
really have a good community around us or enough money to pay the right practitioners or whatever the case may be. So that's really
Yes.
interesting. I
Yeah.
like the link.
Yeah. Are we on number 5 now? I
I think
forgot.
we are.
Okay. Okay. 5 is actually kind of a lot. So 5 is a fifth would be actually okay. This is one of the main fundamental principles of feng shui. It's
Okay.
called the command position.
Okay.
And it it's a way to systematically look at your space and your relationship to the space.
Yes.
So in a base in regular words, it's in 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 pedestrian terms, it's like how you would place your desk, bed, and other furniture or your stove. And you want to set yourself up for, especially your bed, because your bed represents you and your desk represents your career. So those are two really important things for prosperity. You
Okay.
want to be able to set up your space so that when you're laying in bed, you can see the door without directly being in line with the door. And same with the desk. You want to try to set up your desk so you can see the door without
Mhm.
directly being in line with the door. So usually that means like diagonal.
Right. Okay.
And I also describe it as, where would the mafia boss sit in a restaurant? Right?
I like that. Yeah. I'm sitting in my current apartment. I'm sitting where the mafia boss would sit
Oh, good.
on purpose because I've learned so much from you over the years and also from your YouTube channel. Um, but my desk, sadly, there is nowhere for it to be other than looking out two beautiful windows, which makes me so happy because I get to look at trees and
Hmm.
butterflies. I have tons of butterflies in my yard. But when the front door opens, it opens into my desk chair. And we tried putting the desk in a bunch of different places around the apartment, and it just wasn't working at all. I was constantly dripping food across the room for a while. It was just kind of a mess. So, what I did to, and you tell me if this is a good mitigation for that opportunity, not obstacle. I put a hematite crystal right at where the door would open on the side where the hinges are. And on my desk, I have a bunch of crystals in the prosperity area. Is there anything else I could do?
Hmm. So, so basically, okay, so basically when you're at your desk, the door opens into your desk chair.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm looking out two windows, but my
Uh-huh.
back is immediately to the door. So if somebody were to open the door and come
Uh-huh.
in, I would have to turn 180 degrees.
Oh, okay. So you're not in commanding position.
Not at all. No.
Okay. So, because the just in case people don't know where the mafia boss would sit, it would be at the back of the restaurant, like
Yes.
diagonal from the door,
Yes.
with the wall behind him,
Yes.
and with a clear view of everything that's going on in the room. Which the metaphor is that you can see all your opportunities. You're not in a place where you can be surprised. Like for you, you might be really concentrating on something at your desk, and then suddenly like your partner comes in and like the door opens and hits you, or
Right.
someone's, or someone, or something, you hear some noise in your house and you're like, oh, what's going on? And
Yeah.
you have to turn your entire body before you can see what's going on, like you said, 180. And what that does is that activates your flight or flight,
Yes.
because your body knows on a subtle level that you're not able to see everything. So
Yeah.
that affects your ability to do your work, which affects your prosperity.
Mm-hmm.
So what you would do is, okay, first you did the best. It sounds like you did the best you can with what you
Yes.
have. You can, uh, well, there's a few things. Okay. You would traditionally, if you're in line with the door, you would, first of all, for the commanding position, you would set up a mirror so you could
Okay.
see the door behind you.
Oh, okay. You can see I'm taking notes here. If you're following us on YouTube, I'm literally taking notes. Okay. Set up a mirror so I can see
The door
the
behind
door.
you.
Well, when the door is closed, I can't see it. It would only be if it opens.
So you position the mirror so that you can, maybe it's sideways, or maybe you get a convex mirror so
Oh,
you have a wider view.
okay.
And then so the doors to the side then.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you could also put like a shopkeeper's bell on the door so that when it opens, you hear it.
Got it. Okay.
And then, yeah, that would be the best. And so you could use a mirror to correct your command position. So you could see the door behind you, and then also have another level of comforting or to mellow out your fight or flight, because then consciously, if something happens, you're going to be alerted by a bell
Right.
that someone's coming in, or you can be prepared to move
Mm-hmm.
out of the way in case you're in danger.
Okay.
Yeah,
Those are great tips. Thank you so much.
you're welcome.
for all of you out there who are dealing with smaller spaces to be in a location that you love. So, can you explain to us a little bit about the Bagua Map? And I apologize if I'm saying it incorrectly, but there are a few different ones.
Mhm,
And I remember from our conversation in New York when you were helping me with my New York apartment, we used the more Western style Bagua Map. Can you explain to us, A, where to find it? We'll put a link in the notes for everybody so they can get their house in order too. They can see this Bagua Map and figure out how to feng shui their apartment in small ways. You know, if you want great help, Angie is amazing. And you work over Zoom now as well, right?
mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can always ask Angie for help there too.
Yes, and I have a lot of graduates too that are all over the country that and all over the world, so they can be hired as well.
Yay. Okay.
So the Bagua, you did say it correctly,
Okay.
is like an energetic map or a mandala that you can lay over a space. So it has a center and 8 areas that
Hmm.
radiate around it. And there's really just one Bagua map, but what shifts is the way that you may apply it. So there's dozens of schools of feng shui, and they're all correct and they all work. It's what I would recommend is like most people would look at. I would recommend looking at like what's the practitioner that you feel connected to, and then see
Yeah.
what they practice, because because the average person is not going to know the difference, and even if we explained it, you wouldn't really know the difference.
Okay.
So just like there's, a dozen like bread recipes, there's or dozens, hundreds,
Yeah,
millions of bread
100.
recipes. There's many variations on how you may apply the bagua or different feng shui schools.
Yeah.
So the one that I practice BTB feng shui, or the Black Sect, and there's other schools like classical or flying star and form schools, and they all use the same Bagua map,
Okay.
and they all have the same uh, layers and meanings. So there's an overlay of 5 elements, yin and yang, as well as like color associations, organs, body parts, directions, um, and they correspond to the trigrams of the I Ching,
Okay.
and that come from Taoism. So it's all the same Bagua map, but what changes is in the school that I teach, BTB, we locate the map, or we orient the map based on the flow of chi, the flow
Okay.
of energy. So that is always located at the formal front door.
Yes.
And then there's other schools like flying stars, that the stars move and shift based on the directions. And
Okay.
like in BTB, we also have the same, like it's called the Loshi magic square, and the stars also move too, but for different things that don't, they move in our school for different things that don't move in their school.
Okay.
And the flying star, I think the main thing is that the stars move every year.
Okay.
I mean, they do in my school too, but on the overlay on the home moves every year,
Okay.
and that's based and there's an emphasis on the directions, but they move.
Okay.
And so BTB feng shui does not place the main emphasis is not on the directions, but it's on the flow of energy.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there's other schools that the Bagua doesn't move, and it's based on the directions. And then some schools base it on like the front of the home or the back of the
Mhm.
home. And so there's many nuances.
There are so many nuances. If I remember correctly, and tell me if I'm wrong, because the BTB map focuses more on the flow of energy, it's not so much about like, oh, you have to do all career things in the career center of your house. You have to do all the wealth things in the wealth center of your house. But it's not a terrible idea to try to put things there, right? Like if we were to focus on because so much of this conversation has been about prosperity, if we
Mhm,
were to focus on our prosperity, we would look particularly at that corner of, let's say you're walking in the front door, right?
mhm.
We would look to the far left corner. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you in the BTB Bagua, you would lay the Bagua map oriented so that the front door, the bottom of the Bagua is aligned with the front door. So that would place, if your house was a regular square or rectangle,
Yes.
it would be the far left corner. And but one thing to realize about the Bagua map is that it's it's not just on your home. It's really a macro, micro, constantly moving thing. Like you can have a Bagua within a Bagua. So you
Right.
could have, so you could put the Bagua on your whole property. You could put your Bagua on your desk. You could put the Bagua on just your bedroom. So often for people who are not new to feng shui or have a complicated floor plan, I generally recommend that you just lay the Bagua on your bedroom, because usually the bedroom is more often the bedroom is square than
Yeah.
the rest of the house.
Yeah.
And also in the feng shui I practice, your bedroom represents you, because
Right.
it's your most private space. You don't like often like invite people over to hang out in your bedroom, right? You
Right.
invite them, I mean, maybe when you're like 20, but
Yeah.
and a teenager, but when you have your own place, they stay in, the more public areas. So there's
Yeah.
something very private about your bedroom. Plus you spend a lot of time sleeping there, and you're in a passive yin state, so you're really susceptible to the energies.
Yeah.
And always it's more powerful to work on yourself first, right? Putting
Agreed.
on your own oxygen mask before you help anyone else.
Hmm.
So if you stand in the doorway of your bedroom looking in, and if your bedroom is regularly shaped like a square or a
Yeah.
rectangle, the far left corner would be the wealth area.
Okay. I love that. And so you've already given us so many tips on how we can bring prosperity into our lives. I want to give you a few minutes to tell us about your school because I think it's really cool. And I think that there are a lot of people out there, especially after the last 2 years where we're all kind of stuck at home. It's awesome to learn more things about this, and you don't have to, you can go to your school and not have to be like a practitioner at the end of it, right? It can be something that you just enjoy doing in your own home and for friends.
Yes, exactly. Just like, well, as a yoga teacher, although you teach yoga, is that many people take yoga teacher training
Yeah.
and with no plans to become a teacher,
Right.
but to deepen their practice. So
Yeah.
there's many students that either one, they become a practitioner, or
Mhm.
two, they weave it in with something that they already practice,
Right.
or they do it because they just really want to understand and just want to work with their home, or want to work with friends, or just really understand what's happening for them, because you learn so much more, like obviously being diving in deep. So
Yeah.
yeah, I have a business partner, Laura Morris, and we started the Mindful Design Feng Shui School, which I think it's been like 6 years now. And
Woohoo.
we teach everything online, and we have very small classes, maximum 18 people twice a year.
Yeah.
And we teach a practitioner certification course. So we teach people how to become practitioners,
Hmm.
but again, like they don't have to actually do it, but you really just dive deep and understand the whole practice.
I think that's so cool. And you also have a podcast. Everybody, you can check out her podcast because there are so many little tips like the things that she talked about at the beginning of today's show, where you can really kind of look around your space and do small things to just make it feel a little bit better. So we'll drop the link for that podcast here as well. Is there anything else you wanted to let us know before we sign off?
No, but this was really fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. And I miss you and I miss doing yoga with you. I don't actually teach anymore, but that
Oh,
may be something again in the future. It's just been kind of a crazy few years, I think, for all of us.
Oh yeah, of course. Definitely. So yeah,
Yeah.
you have to come back to New York sometime. But I go to LA a lot, so well, I haven't been since January, but my family lives there.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully I'll get to meet your little cutie there. For those of you who are joining us via YouTube, this is her precious dog. What's your dog's name?
Pearl.
Pearl. She's such a
Yes.
cutie little chihuahua.
Say hello, Pearl.
Hi, Pearl. Thank you so much for being with us, Angie, and we'll drop all your links below here.
Thank you.
Thanks.